Up to Donegal, where a group of women arts and crafts workers have come together to form what they call DEW, that is the Donegal Elemental Women's Collective.
I paint what I feel about the landscape. My mood comes out in the ruggedness of a stone, in the smoothness of the sea or the roughness of the sea.
I became interested in clay at the age of 16. I was studying A-levels in Yorkshire where I grew up, and that was me hooked.
The name of the craft is encaustic, which means to burn in. It's an ancient art form which probably has been going well over 2,000 years.
For the pictures I would use everything that you tread on and ignore when you go for a walk. Leaves, flowers, twigs, and I would make them then into little dresses which hang from hangers.
4 women producing 4 very different crafts in the far northwest corner of Donegal. It was that geographical remoteness that led first to their friendships and then to the idea of pooling their talents to form an arts collective which would use potter Kim Sharkey's recently opened shop in Kincashla as a showcase.
I mentioned it to them, would they be interested? And all of us, it was just like a spark, you know. It was like, yeah, we started meeting up together, and we called ourselves Donegal Elemental Women because of the area we come from, you know, being motivated or inspired by the landscape, and also because of the materials that we use. I think by working so closely in a group like that, you inspire each other. And just seeing each other's work, like we get lit up by each other's work, and it encourages you in your own work. I knew that I wanted to open my own shop someday, just to be surrounded by beautiful handmade things and to encourage other people and to, you know, show them what can be done. Yeah, I actually used to live here, the shop that we're in now was my bedroom, and then through into the old kitchen is my pottery workshop, where I take people in and they have a go at making pots, and I make everything. All these pots here are made in there. And then there's also a separate room I can use for glazing and drying my work.
Meanwhile, on nearby Critch Island, Liz Doyle has her workshop.
When we decided to move here, one of the key things was there had to be a space to paint. And when we came and saw the studio, which was then a stable, with a horse, old Muggle, sticking his head out through the half door downstairs, and I thought, that's my studio, even before I'd seen the house. I'm absolutely passionate about painting, and I haven't been painting for very long, only about 10 years. I go through moods of colours. At the moment I'm painting a lot of blues, built up with the textured tubes of gloop, and then they dry off a bit and then cut through them. I'll leave a whole layer of very textured, thick, gloopy paint, scratch through it with a palette knife, and then I can work across it for texture afterwards. And then I'll just slosh quick drying medium paint, which is like a liquid that comes in a tub, and I'll slosh that all over, maybe a pale blue or a green. For me, it's really important to work very big when I can. I mean, obviously, the bigger the painting, the more difficult it is to transport it. But I like to work really in large works. You have to be in with the painting when you're painting really a large painting, whereas with a small painting, you're outside it. I think it's very clear from our work that we all take our inspiration from the same thing, this fantastic, beautiful landscape of West Donegal, and the sea and the sky and the seasons and the flora and fauna, and particularly I think all of us, the rocks and the texture and the crunchiness of it all. But we all have a very, very different take on it.
That's certainly the case with the work of Jaquette Fleury, who recently settled in Burtonport. She brings an ancient art form to the new Jew collective.
It's the process of pigmented beeswax burnt onto, well, I use a flat iron, but I mean you can use a hot plate or anything that will melt the wax, and then paint with either a coarse brush or an iron or a heated stylus, to create images. I actually discovered it while I was doing my HND in Design and Communications, and I was at a craft fair in Belfast, and I saw somebody had pieces of work, original pieces done in acoustics. I suppose I like it because it is instant. I mean, you do get a result fairly quickly. You need very few colours even to make the painting. I just like to work in a more contained medium, I suppose it would be, and I find that if it is in a smaller scale, you get more from it in a sense. You seem to get more detail. I find it more intimate than large-scale works. I suppose that's the beauty maybe of the collective, in that we are quite diverse in our disciplines and in even in the scale of how we like to work.
Also in the world of miniature is the magical craft of mother of four, Emily Baisley.
I've been making clothes and furniture and little houses for the fairies and the little people who live in the woods. I mean, it's been a long-term thing for me, in as much as I've collected all the materials my whole life. I've been given a box full of dried leaves and flowers and all sorts of magical bits and pieces from my grandmother, who collected it over decades. So I wanted to do something very special with it, and obviously having flower presses and books full of my own. And it's sort of grown from there, really. You know, there is no fabric quite like that. You know, I'm permanently amazed by the beauty of nature, the variety and the textures and the colours and everything. When I'm using my grandmother's things that she gave me, it gives me such a sense of being in the past with her almost. Things that you look at and you see in leaves and flowers, you imagine they're so transitory and that within a year they'll be gone and there'll be no going back. But when I'm making a picture out of poppies that were picked 50 years ago, it defies all of that. You know, it brings it into a whole different way of using them, and seeing flowers and plants as something that can go on. They're not necessarily going to be compost by the end of the season. I think when you're being creative and you're in your own little space, making your own little thing, it's very easy to become stagnant and not know where to go with it. And one of the great things about having other people involved on the level that we are, and especially as we're friends as well, we find it very easy to egg each other on and, you know, kick each other when we've stopped as well. You know, it's lovely.
Being a collective means they can take on ventures they would never attempt as solo artists. They're planning exhibitions of their work in other coastal and island regions, in Ireland, Wales and Scotland.
I think choosing the other island communities and coastal regions to go to is really linking to what we know and how we live. We're going to be working to a theme, which is the culture of coastal living. And through doing that, we're really pushing our work and we're talking about our ideas. And it's so different from working on your own in this rural place.
You know, if we're going to Lismore and Uist and Rathlin and all the Northern Ireland and the Scottish Islands, maybe you could do some really weeny ones of these. And each place we go, and we'd pay for it between us, we could leave one with due written on it or something. Yeah.
Well, why don't we all make some sort of symbol piece? Each of us could make a symbol piece, so it'd be effective rather, you know.
I'm not leaving a 6-foot painting in each place.
Like if I was working on my own, I wouldn't be thinking, right, yes, we'll go to Tobermory to Mull to do an exhibition solely on my own. But working together, it's showing what women in Donegal are doing, how we're working creatively, and we want to share it with other Celtic regions, you know, particularly. And I think working together like that, you encourage each other and you make things happen.
Donegal women coming together there to pool their resources, and we wish them and the other craftspeople featured in this evening's programme every success in the year.